since you and Helen got engaged.
We don't talk anymore.
Well, then let's cash up.
From tragic real-world connections to 9/11 and a plane that still flies today, to future superstars who almost landed the lead roles and a Polish fan club that bought an entire abandoned village, the beloved 90s sitcom Wings harbored secrets far stranger than any episode plot. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Wings. Fact 1. Creator died on American Airlines. Flight 11...
Third season, and so they brought in Frasier.
Diane needed an interesting character to...
David Angel, who co-created Wings alongside David Lee and Peter Casey, died in one of the most horrific tragedies in American history. On September 11, 2001, Angel and his wife Lynn were passengers aboard American Airlines Flight 11, which departed from Boston's Logan International Airport, bound for Los Angeles. The couple had been returning home after attending a family wedding on Cape Cod, the same picturesque Massachusetts setting that inspired the fictional town of Nantucket, where Wings took place. At 8:46 in the morning, terrorists hijacked the aircraft and deliberately crashed it into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, making it the first plane to strike the towers that day. All 92 people on board were killed instantly, including the Angels, along with thousands more who perished in the towers. David Angel had built an extraordinary career in television comedy before his death at age 54. Beyond creating Wings, which ran for 8 successful seasons from 1990 to 1997, he went on to co-create the massively popular series Frasier, which became one of the most decorated sitcoms in television history. His work on Frasier earned him multiple Emmy Awards, and he was widely respected in the industry for his sharp writing and collaborative spirit. The tragedy deeply affected the entire Wings and Frasier families, with cast members and crew expressing profound grief over losing someone who had shaped their careers and lives. Kelsey Grammer later dedicated episodes of Frasier to Angel's memory, and the television community established the David Angel Humanitarian Award to honor his legacy of kindness and generosity alongside his remarkable contributions to comedy. Fact 2. Bryan Cranston almost played Joe Hackett.
Because it wouldn't change your performance in a play. You can't change your performance in a movie.
Yeah.
Before Bryan Cranston became the legendary meth-cooking chemistry teacher Walter White on Breaking Bad, he came very close to landing the lead role of Joe Hackett on Wings. Cranston auditioned for the part of the responsible, straight-laced older brother who runs Sandpiper Air, and producers were seriously considering him for the role. At the time, Cranston was a working television actor who had appeared in various shows but hadn't yet achieved stardom. The role ultimately went to Tim Daly, whose natural charm and everyman quality fit perfectly with what the creators envisioned for Joe. However, Cranston wasn't the only future superstar who tried out for Wings during the casting process. The auditions for Bryan Hackett, Joe's younger and more carefree brother, attracted an impressive lineup of actors who would later become household names. George Clooney, who was still years away from his breakthrough role on ER, rid for the part and tried to convince producers he could play the charming ladies' man pilot. David Duchovny, who would soon achieve fame as FBI agent Fox Mulder on The X-Files, also threw his hat in the ring for the Bryan Hackett role. Even Hank Azaria, who became famous for voicing countless characters on The Simpsons and starring in various film and television roles, auditioned for the part. In the end, Steven Weber won the role of Bryan, bringing his own comedic timing and chemistry with Tim Daly that helped define the show's dynamic. Looking back, it's fascinating to imagine how different Wings might have been with any of these other talented actors in the lead roles, though Weber and Daly created something special together. Fact 3. The Sandpiper plane flew until 2023.
Somebody just called you on Roy's phone to tell you that Bunny's coming to sleep with you?
The actual airplane that appeared in the opening credits of Wings had a remarkably long life, continuing to fly passengers for decades after the show ended. The aircraft was a Cessna 402C twin-engine plane with the registration number November 121, Papa Bravo, and it became iconic among fans who watched it soar through the skies during every episode's title sequence. Unlike many props or vehicles used in television productions that end up retired, sold off, or destroyed after filming wraps, this particular plane kept working as a real commercial aircraft. It was operated by Cape Air, an actual regional airline based in New England that flies passengers to destinations including Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and other coastal locations throughout the northeastern United States. The Cessna continued its service with Cape Air for over 30 years after Wings first premiered in 1990. Passengers who recognized the distinctive plane from the show occasionally found themselves flying aboard the same aircraft they'd seen on television, creating a unique connection between fiction and reality. Aviation enthusiasts and Wings fans tracked the plane's movements over the years, and some even made special trips to fly on it specifically because of its television history. The aircraft remained in active commercial service until December of 2023, when Cape Air finally retired it from their fleet. By that point, the plane had logged countless flight hours and carried thousands of passengers safely to their destinations. Rather than being preserved in a museum or kept as a historical artifact, the worn-out Cessna was ultimately scrapped for parts, with its components likely being used to keep other aircraft flying, bringing its long and distinguished career to a practical end. Fact 4. Irving Berlin killed the original title.
That you would do this, that you would embarrass and humiliate yourself in front of all these people.
Wings almost had a completely different name that would have tied the show to one of America's most beloved classic songs. The creators originally planned to call the series Blue Skies and wanted to use Irving Berlin's famous 1926 song of the same name as the show's theme music. The song, which Berlin wrote and which became a massive hit, recorded by numerous artists over the decades, seemed like a perfect fit for a sitcom about pilots and airplanes. The lyrics about blue skies, smiling, and sunny days carried an optimistic, cheerful tone that matched the show's lighthearted approach to life at a small commuter airline. Producers felt confident they could secure the rights to use the song and build the entire show's identity around it. However, Irving Berlin's estate had different ideas about how the legendary songwriter's work should be used. When the producers approached the Berlin estate for permission to use Blue Skies as both the show's title and theme song, they were flatly denied. The estate, which carefully protected Berlin's musical legacy and controlled the licensing of his compositions, refused to allow the song to be associated with a television sitcom. This decision wasn't personal against Wings specifically, but rather reflected the estate's general policy about maintaining the dignity and prestige of Berlin's catalog. Faced with this unexpected rejection, the creators had to quickly pivot to their backup option. They renamed the show simply Wings and commissioned original theme music instead. While the change forced producers to rethink their entire branding and marketing strategy, Wings ultimately became the perfect title, being both simple and directly connected to aviation, and the show succeeded for 8 seasons without needing Irving Berlin's classic tune. Fact 5. Helen was written for someone else.
So that's it. I guess we're moving in together.
Hey, guess we are.
The character of Helen Chappell, the lunch counter owner at Tom Nevers Field Airport, who became a central figure in Wings, was originally conceived as a completely different person with a different background and even a different name. In the earliest versions of the show's scripts, the character was called Helen Trionkis and was written as a Greek-American woman. The creators specifically developed this version of Helen with actress Peri Gilpin in mind, envisioning her bringing a particular ethnic flavor and personality to the role. Gilpin auditioned for the part and seemed like the natural choice to play this character, who would serve as both a friend and romantic interest to the other characters throughout the series. However, NBC executives had different opinions about who should play Helen, and they rejected Gilpin for the role, despite the creator's preferences. The network wanted someone different, and the part ultimately went to Crystal Bernard, an actress who had previously appeared on the sitcom It's a Living, and who brought her own unique qualities to the character. But there was one significant problem with this casting change. When Bernard took over the role, the character was no longer Greek, having been renamed Helen Chapel with no specified ethnic background, yet Bernard performed the part with a distinctly Southern accent that was never explained or acknowledged within the show's storyline. Viewers simply had to accept that this lunch counter owner on a Massachusetts island spoke with a drawl that suggested she came from somewhere far below the Mason-Dixon line, even though no episode ever addressed where Helen was actually from or why she sounded so different from everyone else in Nantucket. The unexplained accent became one of those curious quirks that fans learned to overlook as the show found its footing. Fact 6. Producer Roz Doyle inspired Frasier character.
Performance they need to do, and that's just really the time when you get sort of really centered and focused. So normally, I'm stood there and told them my problems because I had a captive audience.
Behind one of the most memorable characters on the sitcom, Frasier lies a touching tribute to a Wings producer who died far too young. Roz Doyle worked as a producer on Wings during its early seasons, contributing to the show's creative development and helping establish the workplace comedy that became a hit for NBC. Tragically, Doyle was diagnosed with breast cancer and lost her battle with the disease in 1991, passing away while Wings was still in production. Her death deeply affected everyone who worked with her, particularly actress Peri Gilpin, who had auditioned for the role of Helen Chapel on Wings and had gotten to know Doyle during that process. When Gilpin later landed a role on Frasier, the spin-off series from Cheers that was created by the same team behind Wings, she saw an opportunity to honor the producer who had made an impression on her. Gilpin's character was Roz Doyle, the sharp-tongued, confident radio producer who worked alongside Kelsey Grammer's psychiatrist character at the fictional radio station KACL. The character became one of Frasier's most popular figures, known for her quick wit, sexual confidence, and loyal friendship to the main characters. Gilpin has spoken in interviews about how meaningful it was to name her character after the real Roz Doyle, keeping her memory alive through one of television's most successful sitcoms. The tribute was Gilpin's way of ensuring that the producer's legacy continued beyond her too short life. For 11 seasons and 264 episodes, millions of viewers heard the name Roz Doyle, without realizing they were also hearing a memorial to someone who helped make Wings possible. It remains one of the more touching hidden tributes in sitcom history, connecting two successful shows through one person's lasting impact. Fact 7. Thomas Hayden Church never wanted. Lowell.
Paul Giamatti's performance is just beyond it to me. Even today, I haven't seen it in a while, but
Thomas Hayden Church's journey to playing Lowell Mather, the quirky and lovable airplane mechanic on Wings, began with disappointment and frustration that would define his early experience on the show. Church originally auditioned for the lead role of Joe Hackett, the responsible older brother who runs Sandpiper Air, believing he had what it took to carry the series as its main character. When producers decided to cast Tim Daly as Joe instead, they still saw something they liked in Church and offered him a different role. They wanted him to play Lowell, a supporting character who would provide comic relief with his oddball personality, strange observations, and peculiar approach to both aircraft maintenance and life in general. Church was deeply unhappy with this outcome. He felt relegated to a sidekick position when he believed he deserved a starring role, and he considered turning down the part of Lowell entirely. However, there was one significant problem with that plan. Church had already signed a contract with the production that legally bound him to accept whatever role they offered him within the show. The ironclad nature of this agreement meant that walking away wasn't really an option unless he wanted to face serious legal consequences and potentially damage his career before it really began. Stuck in a situation he hadn't wanted, Church reluctantly agreed to play Lowell, though his frustration lingered during the show's early seasons. Over time, however, something interesting happened. Church's portrayal of Lowell became one of Wings's most beloved elements, with fans adoring the character's weird charm and unpredictable nature. The role showcased Church's comedic talents in ways that might not have been possible if he'd played the more straightforward character of Joe, and it ultimately helped launch a successful career that later included an Oscar nomination for his performance in the film Sideways. Fact 8. 22 episodes are missing from streaming.
Smile to your face. For instance, Fred and Ethel Mertz.
When Wings finally made its way to modern streaming platforms including Netflix, Hulu, and Paramount+, fans who wanted to revisit the complete series discovered a frustrating and mysterious problem. 22 episodes from the show's 8-season run were simply missing from these streaming services, creating noticeable gaps in the storyline and leaving viewers confused about character developments and plot points that suddenly appeared without explanation. The missing episodes weren't from a single season, but were scattered throughout the series, making the viewing experience feel incomplete and disjointed. Fans who remembered watching these episodes during the show's original broadcast in the 1990s found themselves unable to share certain memorable moments with new viewers who were discovering Wings for the first time. Among the missing episodes was Twisted Sister, a significant installment that introduces Casey Chappell, a character who becomes important to the show's later seasons. Casey, played by Amy Yazbek, is Helen's sister who arrives in Nantucket and becomes involved with Brian Hackett, creating new romantic dynamics and complications. Without access to her introduction episode, streaming viewers encounter Casey appearing in later episodes with no context about who she is, how she arrived in Nantucket, or what her relationship to the other characters means. The absence of these episodes has never been officially explained by Paramount, which owns the rights to Wings, leaving fans to speculate about what caused these gaps. Some theories suggest music licensing issues, where songs used in certain episodes became too expensive or complicated to clear for streaming rights. Others wonder if certain guest appearances or references created legal problems. Whatever the reason, the missing episodes remain unavailable, forcing dedicated fans to seek out old DVDs or other sources to experience the complete Wings story as it was originally intended. Fact 9. Bizarre. 1927. Film connected.
You know, she's just an angel. Antonio, what's going on here, huh? What's going on is I'm starting to have thoughts for Teresa that you should not have for your cousin's fiancé.
Wings contains a peculiar connection to Hollywood history through a recurring character whose name links directly to the first film ever to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Carlton Blanchard, played by veteran character actor William Hickey, appeared in multiple episodes as an elderly Nantucket resident with a cantankerous personality who frequently interacted with the main characters. The character's name wasn't chosen randomly or simply because it sounded appropriately New England. Instead, Carlton Blanchard was deliberately named after a character from the 1927 silent film Wings, the World War I aviation epic directed by William Wellman that made history by winning the very first Oscar for Outstanding Picture at the inaugural Academy Awards ceremony. The 1927 Wings told the story of two American fighter pilots during the First World War, featuring spectacular aerial combat sequences that were groundbreaking for their time and remain impressive nearly a century later. The film starred Clara Bow, Charles Buddy Rogers, and Richard Arlen, with a young Gary Cooper appearing in a small but memorable role. By naming a character after someone from this classic aviation film, the creators of the Wings television series paid tribute to cinema history while maintaining the show's focus on flying and pilots. The connection becomes even more peculiar when you consider that William Hickey, the actor who played Carlton Blanchard, was born in 1927, the exact same year that the original Wings film was released and won its historic Oscar. Whether this timing was intentional casting or simply a remarkable coincidence, it created an unexpected link between the actor, his character, and the classic film that inspired the character's name, adding an extra layer of movie trivia to a show already filled with quirky details. Fact 10. Polish fans bought an abandoned village.
I want to keep things nice and simple.
Let's book the ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel in Boston. It won't be a big wedding, just 200 or 300 people.
Wings developed passionate fans all around the world during its 8-season run, but perhaps no group of international viewers took their devotion quite as far as a group of enthusiasts in Poland who made an extraordinary real estate decision inspired by the show. Through a Polish government program designed to revitalize abandoned rural properties and encourage people to move to depopulated areas, this group of Wings superfans actually purchased an entire abandoned village. The government initiative offered these forgotten settlements at very low prices, or sometimes even for free to individuals or groups willing to invest in renovating the properties and bringing new life to these ghost towns that had been left empty as rural populations migrated to cities. The Polish fans didn't just buy the village as a strange investment or quirky real estate opportunity. They renamed their newly acquired settlement Nantucket, combining Nantucket with the word Hackett in reference to the show's main characters, Joe and Brian Hackett. The name specifically references an episode from Wings' final season titled Nantucket, which itself was a playful combination of Nantucket and Nantasket, another Massachusetts location. By choosing this name, the Polish fans demonstrated their deep knowledge of even the show's later episodes and more obscure references. The group's plan was to create a community space where Wings enthusiasts could gather, though details about how extensively they've developed the property or whether it functions as a regular Wings fan destination remain unclear. Nevertheless, the fact that devotees of an American sitcom about a tiny Massachusetts airport would purchase an entire Polish village and rename it after the show stands as one of the most unusual examples of international fandom in television history. Fact 11. Lowell's family was never seen.
It's this weekend that changed my life. Cousin Bevo and I went down to my grandmother's farm and we saw a calf being born.
Lowell Mather, the eccentric airplane mechanic played by Thomas Hayden Church, frequently mentioned his unusual living situation and his family throughout Wings, but viewers never actually got to see most of what he described. Lowell claimed to live on a houseboat, an appropriately quirky residence for such an odd character, yet this floating home never appeared on screen during the show's entire 8-season run. Similarly, Lowell often talked about his children, including a son he specifically mentioned as Lowell Jr., suggesting he had named at least one child after himself in classic American tradition. Despite these references that made Lowell's family life seem like an important part of his character background, the show never depicted his kids or gave viewers any visual confirmation that they actually existed beyond Lowell's mentions of them. However, Lowell's wife, Bunny, was a different story, appearing in several episodes and becoming a recurring character who gave audiences a glimpse into Lowell's married life. Bunny was played by Laura Innes, who would later become far more famous for her role as Dr. Carrie Weaver on the long-running medical drama ER. Innes brought a grounded quality to Bunny that contrasted nicely with Lowell's weirdness, creating a believable dynamic where viewers could understand how these two different personalities might work as a couple. The decision to show Bunny but never show Lowell's children or houseboat likely came down to practical production considerations, as bringing child actors into recurring roles adds complications and expenses, while building a houseboat set for occasional appearances might not have been worth the cost. Still, it created an odd situation where Lowell's family remained partially invisible, existing in the show's universe through dialogue, but never quite becoming fully real for the audience. Fact 12. Real-life couple played spouses.
Love at first bagel? Nah. I don't know. I'm too smart for falling in love.
When Amy Yasbeck joined Wings as Casey Chappell, Helen's free-spirited sister, who becomes romantically involved with Brian Hackett, she brought more than just her acting talents to the show. Her real-life husband, comedian and actor John Ritter, guest starred in an episode where he played Stuart Davenport, Casey's ex-husband. The casting created an amusing situation where a married couple in real life portrayed divorced characters on screen with all the awkwardness and tension that comes from former spouses encountering each other. Ritter, who was already famous for his role as Jack Tripper on Three's Company and was continuing his successful television career, brought his signature physical comedy and timing to the guest appearance, creating memorable scenes with his actual wife. This wasn't the first or even second time that Yasbeck and Ritter had played married or romantic partners on television. Wings marked the third occasion where the real-life couple portrayed spouses in a scripted show, making it something of a running theme in their careers. Casting real couples to play fictional couples offers certain advantages for productions, as the actors already have natural chemistry and comfort with each other that can translate to believable on-screen relationships. For Yasbeck and Ritter, their genuine affection and understanding of each other's comedic rhythms helped sell whatever dynamic their characters needed, whether they were playing a happily married couple or, as in Wings, ex-spouses dealing with complicated post-divorce feelings. Tragically, John Ritter died unexpectedly in 2003 from an aortic dissection, cutting short both his life and career at age 54. His guest appearance on Wings remains one of many collaborations he shared with Yasbeck during their marriage, preserving their on-screen chemistry for fans to remember. Fact 13. The pilot was rejected for being plotless.
Out with the Tuckers.
Oh, is it? Gosh, I didn't even realize the days just seem to drift into one another.
Before Wings became a successful sitcom that ran for 8 seasons, its pilot script faced harsh criticism from one of television's most powerful executives who nearly killed the show before it could take off. Brandon Tartikoff, who served as president of NBC Entertainment and was responsible for greenlighting or rejecting potential series, read the original pilot script and delivered a devastating assessment. Tartikoff told the creators that what they'd written wasn't really a pilot episode at all, but rather just a series of individual scenes that happened to feature the same characters. He criticized the script for lacking a developing storyline that would hook viewers and make them care about what happened next. In Tartikoff's view, the pilot felt more like a collection of comedy sketches than a cohesive narrative that established a world and characters worth following for multiple seasons. This rejection could have ended Wings before it began, but instead it forced creators David Angel, David Lee, and Peter Casey to completely rethink their approach. They went back to the drawing board and extensively reworked the pilot script, adding more structure and a clearer story arc, while still maintaining the character dynamics and comedy they'd originally envisioned. The revised version satisfied Tartikoff and NBC executives enough to move forward with production, and the show premiered in April of 1990. The creators' willingness to accept criticism and substantially revise their work rather than defending the original script proved crucial to Wings' eventual success. Tartikoff, who had already established himself as one of television's most successful programmers by developing hits like The Cosby Show, Cheers, and Hill Street Blues, clearly understood what made television pilots work, and his tough love approach helped shape Wings into something stronger than its initial conception. Fact 14. Only 3 Emmy nominations in 8 seasons.
Actually, I was putting down fake dog poop for when the Rooskies showed up.
Despite running for 8 seasons and 172 episodes from 1990 to 1997, Wings received surprisingly little recognition from the Television Academy during its entire run. The show earned exactly 3 Emmy nominations total across nearly a decade on the air, a remarkably low number for a sitcom that maintained steady ratings and developed a loyal fan base. The limited recognition becomes even more striking when you consider that Wings was created by the same team behind Frasier, which became one of the most awarded sitcoms in television history with 37 Emmy wins. Wings also aired on NBC during the network's comedy golden age, surrounded by highly decorated shows like Seinfeld, Frasier, and Friends that regularly received multiple nominations and wins every year. The 3 nominations that Wings did receive tell an interesting story about what the Television Academy valued. One nomination went to the show's makeup department, recognizing the technical craftsmanship behind the scenes rather than the performances or writing. The other 2 nominations honored guest stars rather than the regular cast members who appeared every week. Kelsey Grammer received a nomination for reprising his Frasier Crane character in a crossover episode, while Tyne Daly earned recognition for her guest appearance on the show. This meant that none of the main cast members, including Tim Daly, Steven Weber, Crystal Bernard, David Schramm, Rebecca Schull, or Thomas Hayden Church, ever received individual Emmy nominations for their work on Wings, despite creating memorable characters that fans loved. The show's writers, directors, and other creative personnel were similarly overlooked. While Emmy nominations don't determine a show's quality or cultural impact, Wings' near-total absence from awards consideration remains one of the more puzzling oversights in 1990s television comedy recognition. Fact 15. Tim Daly and Steven Weber became Superman and Batman.
Right, Roy, we're expanding our operation. What's wrong? You afraid of a little friendly competition, huh?
After playing brothers who ran a small airline together on Wings, actors Tim Daly and Steven Weber both found their way into the DC Comics universe through voice acting work, though they took very different paths through Gotham and Metropolis. Tim Daly, who played the responsible older brother, Joe Hackett, landed the prestigious role of voicing Superman in various DC animated projects. Daly provided the voice for the Man of Steel in Superman, the animated series, which ran from 1996 to 2000, as well as in several animated films and crossover episodes with other DC shows like Justice League. His warm, authoritative voice proved perfect for capturing Superman's heroic nature and Clark Kent's earnest decency, making him one of the most beloved voice actors to ever portray the character. Steven Weber, who played the younger, more carefree Brian Hackett on Wings, also entered the DC animated universe, but in a different capacity. Rather than voicing one of the main heroes, Weber played J. Carroll Corcoran, a corrupt politician character who appeared on Batman, the animated series. While Weber didn't voice Batman himself, as some fans mistakenly believe, his role as a morally compromised figure in Gotham City's political landscape gave him a chance to play in the same animated universe that featured the Dark Knight. The fact that the Hackett brothers from Wings both ended up contributing voices to DC's animated projects created an unexpected connection between the aviation sitcom and superhero entertainment. For fans who loved both Wings and DC Comics, hearing Joe and Brian's voices emerge from animated characters added an extra layer of enjoyment to these superhero stories, proving that the Hackett brothers' legacy extended far beyond Tom Nevers Field Airport.